go ahead. You got a driver's license? Where's that? Where's your driver's license? Back up. You don't see the issue here? Hold on. You don't see the issue here. You're not parked across 3 lanes?
That's cool.
Yeah,
you get back in the car.
cool. $23.90. Can I get another squad here? Back up. Back up.
For what?
Are you obstructing me? I just told you to back up. I just told you to back up.
I just did.
Everything you're doing right now is on camera, okay?
You touched me first. So
that's right. I told you to back up. Because you're going to try and get in the car. I'll do what I want, all right?
No,
I own this right here.
Remember when Milwaukee Bucks man Sterling Brown had a messy confrontation escalated by police?
And I just asked what you got the problem. What you mean what I mean? I said what I mean. What? Can I ask you why? I'm bothering you? I'm trying to get in touch. On what? I'm just asking you a question. No, it's tired. For what? And I can move it.
The incident took place outside of Walgreens, all because Brown was illegally parked. It would get worse. Credit to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel for posting the body cam.
Take your hands out of your pockets now!
Hold on. I got stuff in my hands.
Ground! Oh, they got a taser?
Hold on. Taser!
And this was the result. Taxpayer dollars wasted on what should have been a simple parking ticket turned into a brutal assault of a professional athlete.
Just initially, like I say, I rolled up, I was going to take a piss. I see the car parked like that. He's gone. I said, is there a reason for this? The emergency? Whatnot, you know. That's what I'm thinking. Hey, maybe he's got a medical emergency or something. He needs to get in there. And I asked her, I said, where is he? I was excited to get to me. He comes out and starts getting in my face. And I said, hey, back up. You want to do it? You know, same thing as before. If the guy hadn't been such a dick, it would have just been, hey, have a nice day, you know. But then I thought, okay, he's being an ass. He's trying to hide something.
The responding officer would share his side of the story, though it appears video evidence refuted his own words.
We heard the police department, the mayor all apologized for the actions taken by the officer there, but the police union is defending the action, saying that the use of force will never look pretty, but is unfortunately a necessary component of policing.
Of course, this was the union's response. The aftermath.
Nora, good morning to you. This is not the first time the Milwaukee Police Department has been the focus of questionable use of force. Sterling Brown now says he plans to file a lawsuit sometime next week to hopefully prevent something like this from happening again in the near future.
Our department conducted an investigation into the incident, which revealed members acted inappropriately, and those members were recently disciplined.
On Wednesday, newly appointed Milwaukee Police Chief Alfonso Morales apologized for his officers' actions in the January incident. The case has placed added pressure on a department already under scrutiny. In 2016, riots broke out after an officer shot and killed Seville Smith after a traffic stop. Smith had a gun, but in a split-second decision, an officer shot and killed him after Smith apparently tossed his weapon aside. Last year, the city settled a lawsuit for $2.3 million for the 2014 killing of Dontre Hamilton, a mentally ill man who was agitated by an officer's unlawful pat-down. The officer shot Hamilton 14 times during their altercation.
Brown would sue and...
All right, Sterling Brown approving a $750,000 settlement in a lawsuit with the city of Milwaukee after he was tased and physically brought to the ground by police over a parking violation in 2018. I'm just going to say that again. Tased, thrown to the ground. You're seeing some of the camera footage there over a parking violation. The city also pledged to admit that this was indeed a civil rights violation and to make some changes to the department's policies.
Via ESPN, be approved and win a $750,000 settlement. Officer Erik Andrade, seen here, did not have initial contact with Brown, but did transport him to the station. He would later suffer the consequences of his own actions. On Facebook, Andrade wrote after seeing Brown get assaulted, quote, "Nice meeting Sterling Brown of the Milwaukee Bucks at work this morning. Laughing out loud, hashtag fear the deer." Another post would see Andrade write, "I hope J.R. Smith double parks in Walgreens handicap parking spots when he's in Milwaukee, !" Kevin Durant would also be made fun of in a racist post next to an ice cream cone. Andrade would repost the Bigoted meme, which was titled, "Who Wore It Better?" and captioned, "Damn, more naps than preschool, LMAO. CNN had more at the time, responding to a shared story about Brown's arrest, which tagged Andrade and said, "Let the man get his early morning craving of popcorn." Andre responded with a laughing emoji. Additionally, reports the outlet, Andrade also shared a post showing 3 pictures of black men, including Sterling Brown, that said, yes, whenever something happens, it's always an epidemic of racism, police brutality, or whatever lies these failed liberal, hand-picked, so-called liberal black leaders come up with. Above the post, Andrade wrote, "A little truth to those who want to listen." There would be more from Andrade's social media, and here it is. What comes to mind when I'm at work and I'm driving down Greenfield Ave SMH? Andrade wrote in one post, which featured a graphic that said, "Sick and tired of these blank," and featured the logo for Tide Laundry Detergent. Greenfield Ave is a prostitution hub in Milwaukee. Andrade seemed to celebrate using force in one post, saying, "Had a great time working replacement over in D5 the other day, 5+ OT and a use of force, LOL." In a May 3rd post about a man fighting with Milwaukee PD, Andrade would write, "Let's see the whole video now since people are crying police brutality and how officers are beating an innocent black man for no reason. You social media educated fools are too much sometimes." In 2018, after he was fired, the Fire and Police Commission held a vote on whether he could get his job back. The result was unanimous. The firing would be upheld. But you see, Andrade wasn't done. The Milwaukee native would fight and continue fighting to get his job back locally. And this is where WPR would have more. Andrade would file 2 lawsuits challenging his firing, one of which argued his due process rights were violated during the proceedings. The circuit court and a state appeals court upheld the termination. That is when his case was heard by the Supreme Court of the state. And this from WPR. In its 5-2 decision, the Wisconsin Supreme Court said former Milwaukee Police Chief Alfonso Morales and the Milwaukee Board of Fire and Police Commissioners gave Andrade all the process he was due under the 14th Amendment. Conservative Justice Brian Hagedorn, who sided with the court's 4 liberals, wrote the majority opinion. "We conclude the due process clause does not require a more exciting and rigid pre-termination process than what Andrade received from the AP. The court also determined that the police chief followed the law when he listed the policies that Andrade violated and referenced the Facebook posts that formed the basis for the violations. Additionally, as a whole, writes the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel's Chris Ramirez, the police department also was required to look more deeply into how it interacts with citizens, conducts field interviews, its search and seizure policy, arrest authority, personnel investigation, use of force policy, and body cameras use. Several cops were suspended and others were retrained after an internal investigation. Brown, currently 29 years of age, is not in the National Basketball Association. He is playing overseas in the Bundesliga with a club called Alba Berlin. He is averaging about 11 points per game this season. I will say this is just one individual within a police department that let the mask off publicly because he flew way too close to the sun. There have been unearthed audio recordings. You could even Google the Wilmington PD firing 3 police officers. And then there was also another incident just post George Floyd being unalived by Derek Chauvin, where there were 2 members of a local police precinct in the state of Georgia who were also caught on a body cam that the officer thought he turned off but did not. What we would like to see is, first off, using the funding that these police precincts get across the country, taking that out of the equation, investing in local communities. That is always number one. Number 2 is having more oversight, which is something that the unions and others continue to this day to fight tooth and nail so they can get away with these injustices. I hope in some fashion that this is shedding light that, first off, you have to be super dumb to continue to post stuff like this and gloat over the suffering that you are putting onto the citizens that you are supposed to serve and protect. The second is, I really hope that Sterling Brown has found some peace through all of this. However, there were more officers on the scene, not just this guy. So, there's that.
Colleges to corporations to our culture, people are making money and gaining power by pretending we haven't made any progress at all, by doubling down on the divisions we've worked so hard to heal. You know this stuff is wrong. Hear me clearly. America is not a racist country.
They are words that will live in infamy from South Carolina Senator Tim Scott.
When you grow up just Black, you have some level of awareness of the fact that this, like, I'm treated differently than literally other kinds of people that exist. You don't really need much understanding in terms by way of education to really know that. Like, your lived experiences give you that information.
Chicago rapper Noname, like many who experience the ills of this country simply for not being white, shows the Scotts of the world the tried and true feelings of the marginalized.
That dare not talk about black on black crime in Chicago.
Another lame duck point brought up by white supremacists like Charlie Kirk. Whataboutisms with Chicago, and why not talk about black on black crime?
When I look at any crime against Black people in this country, for me, that's just white supremacy. Like, if Black people, if we in our communities had enough resources, I don't really think crime would exist how it does. Like, I don't look at the person holding a gun, more so the system that created the circumstance for him to pick up the gun or for her to pick up the gun. If I'm thinking about gun violence, I'm thinking this is a systemic issue based on capitalism, like based on people not having resources. So, that's so you got to call it spade a spade.
She's right. And we've discussed this plenty on this very medium.
Okay, I think we've passed kneeling.
It's a stark contrast between Jay-Z cozying up to those that blackballed Colin Kaepernick to serve his capitalistic ways, and Noname writing in her song Namesake, reading between the line at the crime scene, I ain't blank with the NFL or Jay-Z. Propaganda for the military complex. The same gun that shot Lil Terry out west. The same gun that shot Samir in the West Bank. We all think the Super Bowl is the best thing.
No advanced economy has ever achieved low poverty rates without high levels of government social spending. And the fact is, capitalists have always fought against those policies, against progressive taxation, against minimum wages, against social welfare programs, against union bargaining. Poverty has been reduced not by capitalism, but in spite of and against capitalists' opposition.
Shout out to my GOAT, Professor Richard Wolff. With Noname, there has been a theme.
And yeah, I definitely tweeted that capitalism wasn't evil, that it was a tool. And a lot of people pushed back and were very expressive about how wrong they felt I was. So I just started doing my own research and realized there is a whole structure in place that keeps people poor, keeps people isolated and marginalized, no matter how hard they try.
She tweeted something, did not get mad at the backlash, educated herself, and has opened doors for many through her own learnings. We need more of this mentality in society, not less.
The United States has the largest prison population on Earth. The country has 5% of the world's population, but nearly a quarter of all its prisoners. African American men are 6 times more likely to be incarcerated than white men. And African American men under 35 without a high school diploma are more likely to be imprisoned than employed in the labor market. Nearly 6 million former felons are denied the right to vote. That means 1 in 40 adults are disenfranchised, and 1 in 13 African Americans don't have a voice at the ballot box.
Noname sees the system as a racist, classist, and a failure in society. Thus, she wanted to try and help any way she could.
I really wanted to sort of form a community, like to have a book club. I selfishly thought there might be people who in the meeting could also help me understand the material that I was struggling to get by myself. The book club is basically just a space where we can read books that are written predominantly by Black folks and that usually have some sort of a political theme. Right now we have about 14 chapters. I felt it was really important to not just have chapters all across the country on the outside, but also to have book club chapters inside of prisons and jails, because I think information should be free and accessible to everybody. One thing that the state is really good at is making us feel alone in our experiences.
She would start Noname Book Club. Please support her work and visit her site, nonamebookclub.com. We'll have a link in the bio.
In 1987, Corrections Corporation of America, CCA, today called CoreCivic, charged $32.17 per inmate. By 1997, it charged the government 33% more. However, the company's cost only increased by about 8%. The company's revenue grew 27 times.
Look no further than the prison industry as well. Enabled by the 13th Amendment, the prison industry soars through keeping Americans, predominantly minorities, down. And plenty of companies benefit from this pennies on the dollar labor.
I think it's hard to have an understanding for capitalism if you don't trace it back to imperialism and colonialism. And that's what helped me to get a better understanding, because it's a lot of times when we talk about capitalism, we talk about it as a exclusively economic system. It's racial capitalism is really what it is. Like, I think we get lost in just talking about capitalism, but there's this like Black radical tradition that really talks about how it's rooted in racist practice. So whenever we talk about capitalism, it's beneficial to us to think about it and talk about it as racial capitalism.
Right. She rightfully calls it out, like she did here on Desus and Mero. R.I.P., by the way, to the best duo in late night.
If you look at countries throughout the world, the ones that don't have a drug problem are those that institute a very quick trial, death penalty sentence for drug dealers. It sounds horrible, doesn't it? But you know what? That's the ones that don't have any problem. It doesn't take 15 years in court. It goes quickly, and you execute a drug dealer.
It would be better if this was just a boomer Facebook post. But this nonsense comes from the former president of the United States, an ex-reality TV star who is completely out of touch.
With me, when it comes to that, like, again, I have a very loose, like, idea about criminality. Like, what the government has told me is a crime. Oh, you have this much weed on you, you get to go away for this many years. I don't believe in the ideas of criminality. So, like, when I make certain critiques, I don't necessarily think, like, oh, you're the worst kind of person because you sell drugs or whatever. I don't really care. I just am like, I see it as more like a means to an end.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be something that you would have to do in perpetuity forever and always.
Bingo. And it goes hand in hand with how we got here in the first place. Most importantly, she wants to use her platform for good.
I'm not a political pundit. I really am just a who really just likes rapping. Like, I don't actually really want to just have this be my persona. Like, I get that this is how people see me because this is what I put forward on social media. But I just feel like that's, what else am I going to do with this big ass platform if not talk about something that's going to be some kind of helpful? Like, I don't do it because I know people think I do it because it's like, that's my brand, that's all I care about. But I'm just like, I just feel like it would be a waste of my platform. Hundreds of thousands of people follow me, so like, I be feeling like I should use it for us in a more liberatory type of way.
All right, so before we jump into it, if you can, please do become a channel member at youtube.com/TYTSports to keep us afloat, or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, if you want to support me, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Here's what I will say about this, because I know some people are going to bring it up, and it will allude to her past comments about who she wants at her shows. This is an artist being honest with her audience and the people who like her stuff. And weirdly, I comprehend it because when I look at, so many artists and authors and athletes, and they are going to a certain venue and are surrounded by predominantly white people, I could see how that could have a certain feeling on somebody. I don't think she's trying to alienate her fans. I think she's just trying to live her truth and also understand where she is coming from. Because she is someone who has released her albums on her own, done it independently, and is still getting calls from Pitchfork and Coachella. So clearly, even though she is saying these things that people run with, when a lot of times it's taken out of context to demean her and push her down and try and, in my opinion, sabotage her career, she's still thriving, which is great to see. If you haven't seen her NPR Tiny Desk, highly recommend doing so. Third, I personally like that she has gone after some that are staunch capitalists that benefit from the system. And one person I didn't put in here because for time purposes was Killer Mike and the back and forth that they had on Twitter as well. Some on this network applaud him and some like him, and that is fine. That is their opinion. I'm more in the no-name camp when it comes to Killer Mike, because he has called himself a capitalist, something that as I have grown older, I am vehemently against. And our very CEO and I, Jake Uger, when we were on a show together, I even booed him when he said that he was a capitalist. It was jokingly, but there was also truth to it, and I know that he knows there was truth to it as well. That's also something that I think on this network we thrive with to a degree, that I can have a completely different opinion than that guy, and we could talk it out. I like what she's doing. I think everybody should support not only her music career, but also the way that she is humanizing those who are incarcerated. Because as we have seen over time, what many in elite, powerful positions try to do is dehumanize these people and make them not feel as though they are valued as a human being. So support our book club and support our music if you can.